One is a war flick so over the top you'd think it was a parody. The other is a meditation in building suspense by Hollywood's favorite foot fetishist. Inglorious Bastards. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome back to They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
Just chilling out here as the dog days of summer stretch out before us. It is hot as hell where I am right now, and my apartment takes forever to cool down, so I apologize for the inevitable sound of the air conditioning.
We're making our way through the summer months, finally. It started to get hot for a while, and then we had like 2.5 weeks of rain where I am.
Yeah, it was off and on here.
It was very humid and muggy for quite a long time, but that's behind us now.
Hey, now it's just hot.
Yes. I much prefer the heat. I am the heat miser, as I've said in the past.
I'm getting better with it, at least where I live now, as opposed to where I lived for most of my life. The humidity is not nearly as bad, so it's much more bearable. But I actually went home during our, period between episodes, and I got off the plane, and I was wearing my usual work attire, which is jeans and a button-up shirt, because it's it's an office setting, and a casual office setting still. But I got out of there and I started sweating like a fucking pig. It's so friggin' hot.
Ugh, gross.
And I came back, home, where I live now, home, and I'm just like, oh, thank goodness.
I'm not nearly as greased and sweat as I was.
Mm-hmm.
This is my new home.
Yeah. Where I don't have to die of whatever fucking sweat condition I have.
Yeah, no pore infections here. But now that we're done with our weather forecast
yes,
that we usually go through with these,
I think it's kind of past cast at this point.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Who knows? Weathers, travels. I got nothing.
Yeah, no, okay. I was about to say, I don't know where you're going with this one. I don't think you do either.
I'm a meteorologist. But anyways, I was wanting to know, what have you been watching these past couple weeks?
I've actually watched a higher number of things. I think the earliest thing I can remember, I watched Toy Story 2 with the girlfriend, just for the fun of it. It was pretty good. It's definitely, as I've said before with the original Toy Story, hasn't aged the best, but it definitely is probably, I have the most memories of it. As I mentioned before, the first movie I'd ever seen in a theater was Toy Story 2. So that was fun kind of catching back up with that.
Mm-hmm. It's great. Kelsey Grammer and Wayne Knight are excellent in that movie.
Yep. Let's see. I saw actually an indie film when I went home. I watched it with my mom and dad. It's just this cute little thing. It was called Meet Me in Montenegro. It's just this kind of love story about this American kind of indie filmmaker who goes to Germany to try and pitch a film and kind of reconnects with an old flame he had. And there's this whole drama about it and all that sort of stuff. It's yada yada. Nothing huge stakes in the end, but it was pretty cute.
All right, that's good. That's nice. You need those.
I can't think of anyone recognizable in it other than one of the characters is a guy I saw in The Death of Stalin, which that comedy movie, which that one was fun. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that recently, but I was just saying.
Just subtle drop.
And then I've seen another one. I watched Hamilton, actually, that came out on Disney+.
Oh, the Disney Plus Hamilton.
Yep. I had seen it before because my girlfriend had a bootleg of it because she loves musicals and I really wanted to see it. But having seen it now and, actually properly being able to understand people and, seeing proper camera work was very nice. So that was pretty good.
So what is the Hamilton on Disney Plus? I assume it's a filmed play, or filmed musical, like the original one is. It's not a theatrical adaptation. Right,
no, it's just it is just the stage play, but they had professional cameramen to film it this time.
Right. That's what I assumed it was.
Yeah, it is really good. I gotta say, if you like musicals even a little bit, Lin-Manuel Miranda is an amazing playwright. Just how his songs work, how they all have elements of every other song, so at all times they're kind of harkening back to other songs that are going to happen later. It's crazy. It's fun to be able to watch it, and it kind of all culminates in this grand climax and everything. It's just, I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the best musicals of the modern era.
I guess I should look into it because, like I've said before in the past on this show, I am a big fan of musicals, but honestly, my extent of familiarity with Lin-Manuel Miranda is I believe he wrote a song or two for Moana.
He did. He also sang a little in it.
Oh, okay. And he is also on one of the special features for the most recent release of Disney's Beauty and the Beast, the animated one. And it's just him and 3 other people sitting in front of a piano. And Alan Menken's behind the piano, and they're just like, "We love you. You're a god." And it's that for like 10 minutes.
Okay. I mean, all right. He's good in this play. I'll just say.
That's good.
Yeah. That's, I think, it for movies I've watched. I'm sure there's another one I'm forgetting, but if I think of it later, I'll probably not bring it up. I'll just be like, whatever. But I'm also watching a TV series I've been meaning to watch for a while called The Terror, which is, it's a fictionalized account of the real-life situation of the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus, who are 2 ships that get lost in the Canadian Arctic looking for the Northwest Passage. And like the whole thing of it is basically just, it's a horror show, essentially. Not essentially, it is. It's about just the shit that these poor sailors get into, and just like how they all just slowly start A, losing their minds, and B, dying in horrible ways.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I like the historical setting more than anything. It's rare that you see horror stories and everything set in, less contemporary settings. So it's nice to be able to see like, oh, okay, cool. Just seeing this and actually like, I think this was the mid to late 1800s, I believe. Somewhere in there. It was post-Napoleonic era. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool so far.
That's nice. And of course, with a title like Terror or The Terror,
yeah.
you expect some horror, damn it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Which like it's always crazy because it's like the real life ship was named The Terror. It's like, y'all were fucking asking for that one.
Yeah, the guy who named the ship furiously patting his forehead with a cloth. Just like, boy, I should have called it The Picnic or something.
And then the other one was the Erebus, which is the Greek god of darkness. So it's like, what the fuck?
What an asshole.
Yeah, the people who name these ships. Like, I don't know. It's like the kind of thing that's like truth is stranger than fiction, just seeing that sort of shit.
Definitely. Wow.
But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's just crazy to see. It's just the amount of bullshit these people go through. It's like, oh my god. It's like, because for the most part, we don't know exactly what happened to them. We just know that everyone died. But they know that most of them got some degree of disease, and their food was improperly sealed, so they got a lot of scurvy and everything. So they were just pretty much screwed from the word go.
Yeah. Just bad luck all around.
Pretty much. But yeah, I think that's it for me. What about you?
All right. Well, just like you, I actually have a number this time.
Ooh.
And I'll try to go through them pretty quickly. But I also did want to mention, recently, famed comedy legend Carl Reiner did pass away.
Oh, yeah.
And we usually save the deaths for the end of the show, but I figured I'd bring it up since we've covered him twice on the show now. He was in Mad, 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 Mad World as sort of the flight control deck operator for the Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett characters. And, of course, he was Saul Bloom in the Ocean's 11 movies. So he's done tons of work. He was Mel Brooks' comedy partner for years and years and years, and they were still friends up until the end, and now he is gone.
Son of a bitch. Yeah. A lot of celebrities have died recently, it feels like.
Oh, yeah, I believe another one passed recently. Charlie Daniels.
Yeah.
Passed either yesterday or today, and I remember reading about that. As of this recording, of course, but...
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure more have died since then.
Yep, it's always happening.
I'm going to take another long drink.
Now I'll go into the things that I've watched. So the first thing I watched was the 2020 based on quarantine. It's mostly 2020. Scoob. The Scooby-Doo movie that came out.
The only thing I know about that movie so far is that there is a scene where Dick Dastardly just introduces himself really blatantly to camera and just goes, dick. And that is the only thing I know, and it is the funniest thing in the world.
Well, then later in the scene, Scooby calls him Rick, and so he screams dick at Scooby with like his veins popping out.
Oh, that's fun.
That's pretty fun.
I imagine they do that just so they can try to get the giggles out of the way right up front. It's like, yes, you're gonna laugh at the word dick. We're gonna say it a bunch and move on.
But it's an okay movie. It's not terrible by any means. It's got a lot of those kid movie tropes, whatever, that you tend to hate after a while. And some definite trailer fodder jokes that you just can't stand. But I have to say, I was engrossed the entire time, and it wasn't even because of the plot, but it really is like a treasure trove of Hanna-Barbera Easter eggs, is what it is. The entire movie.
Huh. See, like, I was curious about that. Are they doing like a Hanna-Barbera connected universe now? Because like the fact that I saw Dick Dastardly hanging out with Scooby-Doo, I was like, what the fuck is this movie?
I don't know that they can do a connected universe because of the way the Easter eggs are. The only characters that actually exist in the movie are Scooby-Doo, Dick Dastardly, and another one that I guess I won't reveal since the movie's relatively new, that I was actually surprised, like, oh shit, he's here. So there's 3 Hanna-Barbera properties that show up proper. But then throughout the course of the movie, I was pausing constantly because there was like a poster for Frankenstein Jr., an arcade cabinet with Hong Kong Phooey on it, a billboard with Squiddly Diddly. Just all of these things that I shouldn't be excited for because Hanna-Barbera sucks. But I loved it because I grew up watching Boomerang all the time, so I saw all of these awful old cartoons that Hanna-Barbera put out, and the movie is literally filled with allusions to them. The credits are even worse because they actually introduce the notion that some of the characters do exist. So I guess maybe a cinematic universe could be in the future.
I mean, it seems like with how much they're teasing it.
Yeah. I mean, at the time it was just like, okay, they talked about the wacky races. Hong Kong Phooey is a video game in the world. I don't know what they could do with that. But then when the credits come and it's like, oh, the characters, I guess, all exist, kind of.
Yeah.
Because they're showing what happens after the movie, like what the Scooby Gang does and introducing all the characters. So, like, Jabberjaw's there. It's Adamant, So I can see them moving forward with more movies based around that. And, of course, C.H. Greenblatt, now that Harvey Beaks and Chowder are in his past, he is creating the TV series Jellystone for HBO Max, which is just a Hanna-Barbera cartoon with all the characters.
Huh. It is also in this moment that I really did not realize how many Hanna-Barbera cartoons there are, because you just named like 7 of them, and I did not recognize maybe more than one. I did not watch a lot of Hanna-Barbera, I realized. I mostly just watched Scooby-Doo and occasionally whatever the show was with Dick Dastardly. I can't remember the name of it.
Wacky Races?
Wacky Races, that's it.
Flying Machines? Yeah, they made TV animation for like 25 years, and the animation looks terrible because of how cheap it was.
Oh, yeah,
so
I know that.
Just look up Hanna-Barbera's Wikipedia page, and you will see no less than 100 cartoons. I guarantee it.
I'm sure there's
different
more
ideas.
I'm sure there's more that I have seen. I just can't remember them right now, but yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre is what it is. But now that I've talked at length about that...
Yep, sorry.
No problem. I've watched a various collection of odd things. So I saw 2 horror films, Waxwork from 1988 and Waxwork 2, Lost in Time from 1992. It's a sequel film. They kind of play off the trope that you've come to expect since House of Wax, which is like a wax museum, but the figures are alive, or they kill people and dump them in wax, or whatever. So it's really tired.
Yeah.
And both of the movies are kind of really boring and dull until the last 20 minutes. For both movies, the last 20 minutes are batshit crazy.
In what way, dare I ask?
So the first one is really boring because it's just like, there's all these... And this film's from 88. I'll spoil it. I don't care about that.
Yeah, who gives a shit? No one has heard of this other than you, I think.
So the whole movie is like these monsters that are in this bad wax museum, and if a person steps beyond the velvet rope, they're in a scene where the spirit of that evil figure possesses the wax figure and kills them so that they can come back to life. And once all the wax figures have killed someone, then they all come back to existence and they can wreak havoc upon the world. Which, by the way, they have some great historic figures in there, like a vampire and a werewolf and the Marquis de Sade. So it's very interesting,
okay.
at least.
That's quite the range.
Yes, but the last 20 minutes, basically, the hero fails. All the monsters are alive again, and they start to leave the wax museum, only for this British character in a wheelchair who was introduced for like 5 minutes in the movie, wheels in with a sword, with an army of old men behind him, and what precedes is 20 minutes of like werewolves and vampires and mummies fighting old British men in a wax museum. And like a little person gets fed to a little shop of horrors plant, and the vampire turns into a bat and tries to fly away, only for a British man to grab him as he's flying away, hold a gun up to the bat's head, and blow its head off on screen. And it's literally crazy. I would suggest anyone to go out and just watch the ending of this movie, because I couldn't believe it.
This sounds like the greatest Monty Python bit of all time. What'd you say it was called again?
Watching it. It's called Waxwork. It was psychotic. And of course, our friend David Warner, who we last saw on the Omen episode, he was the photographer in the 1976 version. He is the villain of the movie. So it's always nice to see David Warner.
Gotcha. I have found Waxwork 1988 body count on YouTube. I'll be looking at that later.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear your report. And the sequel's kind of the same way, except the last 20 minutes are like time traveling through various things that I wouldn't classify as time periods, like a Godzilla movie and a mall filled with zombies, but whatever, the movie does whatever it wants.
So I guess it's like, I think it might just be movie jumping at that point, because that's fucking Godzilla and Dawn of the Dead.
Exactly, but they call it time jumping, so it's different.
Maybe it's trying to say, like, in this universe, all movies are part of the same universe. It's just different time periods.
The Waxwork cinematic universe.
Oh, Christ. This is like that one fucking TV show that I always reference but can never remember the name of, that is about the autistic kid who imagines all of reality.
Oh, St. Elsewhere, yes.
St. Elsewhere, there we go.
Excellent.
I will forget that immediately.
And of course, at one point during Waxwork 2, they time travel, quote unquote, to a haunted house location. Again, not a time period. But Bruce Campbell shows up. And I sent a message when he showed up to our group chat, actually, because I was so surprised. But that was fun. And that's probably the best part of the movie.
Fair enough. Bruce Campbell does some weird shit.
He does. He's basically the king of B-movies. You just call him and he'll do it. More than likely.
Fair enough.
Just a couple more that I'll go through. Peter Pan, the Disney film, 1951. I've been watching a lot of Disney animated features from that time period, and I'm glad to say Peter Pan I don't find boring. A lot of these I've been disappointed. I still enjoy it. Hans Conried steals the show as Captain Hook, of course.
They're doing a proper live action remake of that, you know?
Yeah, I actually heard.
Apparently Jude Law is going to be Captain Hook.
I did not hear that part, though.
Yeah, he's at least slated to be. He might not be in the end, but that's what I saw.
Well, we will see what happens with that.
I'm sure I will eat my words.
So, either last year or the year before, I plowed through the entirety of Tales from the Crypt, which is one of my favorite shows, except for the 7th season, because you can easily find all of them online, on YouTube even, but I didn't have the DVD, so I didn't watch it. I got the DVD for Christmas, I finally got around to watching it, and I'm happy to say there's only a couple episodes in that season I don't really like. I've been pretty hard on it in the past as the worst season, but it's not terrible. I don't know why I was so hard on it. The series finale is still one of my favorite episodes. It's the only animated one they ever did, and it has great voice acting, and it has great drawings. Not a bad season, so I rescind my earlier statement that it is the worst season of Tales from the Crypt. I'd have to analyze that. It might be 5 or 6.
Alrighty.
almost near the end here, there's one that I watched that I wrote down, but recently I was looking up facts of it for it, and I saw that there was a television remake of this movie. So I'm not going to say what it is on the air because I kind of want to do that sometime this year.
Okay.
So just putting that out there. It's a movie I really like.
Well, I got something to look forward to.
And finally, the last thing I watched was a movie from 1981 called Under the Rainbow. Have you heard of this?
I have not. It sounds like a rip on... is it a rip on Wizard of Oz?
Not a rip on it, but it heavily involves it. Basically,
Okay.
It is the story of all the little people hired to play the Munchkins in Wizard of Oz, residing in a hotel. And meanwhile, there are Nazis and American spies causing havoc in the hotel at the same time.
What the fuck?
Madcap comedy ensues. The people involved are Chevy Chase, Carrie Fisher, Billy Barty, Zelda Rubinstein.
There was a solid few seconds there when you were describing this. I thought this was just going to be like a documentary about how shittily the little people actors were treated on the set. I thought for a second there I was like,
nope.
What the hell? There were Nazis and everything involved? Oh my God, I was so confused.
It is a comedy retelling of the events, I guess Judy Garland outlined in her book, that whenever she went to that hotel, the little people were nasty, rude, and they stayed up all night. But it's that, but they added all this other World War II stuff to it. Hitler actually shows up in the movie.
Okay.
But yes, all these famous people are in the movie. I can never remember how to pronounce his name. Mako or Mako is in it?
I think it's Mako.
Mako is in the fucking movie.
Okay.
As one of the bad guys. And sadly, I did see this. Billy Barty was nominated for a Razzie for this movie for Worst Supporting Actor. And I gotta say, this movie is an awful piece of shit with a god-awful ending. Like it was all a dream ending. So you know how bad it is. But
yeah.
Billy Barty was probably the only thing that kept me from turning it off. So kind of sad he got nominated for a Razzie.
Alrighty.
But yes, that is all that I watched.
Oh, well, that kind of gives us a beautiful little segue in the form of, speaking of Nazis.
Oh, that's right.
This time around, we're doing the, as the Stinger put, on the one end, some over-the-top bullshit. On the other end, some over-the-top bullshit, but also, good writing by a foot fetishist.
Of course, yes.
I will never not let that live down. I can't.
Every time he hears you talk about it, he fumes.
Good. It's Inglorious Bastards. We'll kick off with the 1978 version of Inglorious Bastards, directed by Enzo Castellari. Yes. In France in 1944, a series of American soldiers, now prisoners, having defied various orders, are being transported to a nearby prison in order to be shot. These soldiers are made up of Burl, played by Jackie Basart, Nick, played by Michael Pergolani, Fred, played by Fred Williamson, Tony, played by Peter Hooton, and Lieutenant Jaeger, played by Bo Svensson. During the journey to the camp, the convoy that they are being transported in gets a flat tire, and in the midst of all this, they are attacked by a German air raid. In the chaos, the 5 criminals take advantage and escape. They decide that they need to try to make their way into neutral Switzerland. Along the way, they stop in an abandoned factory in the countryside to rest and refill. While they're eating, the upper floor of the building collapses, and a German soldier appears from between the hay bundles. Captured by Jaeger's group, he tells them that he is in fact an escaped prisoner from the Germans and was sentenced to death just like the rest of them. Although Tony and Fred want to kill him, Jaeger prefers that they keep him along in case the Nazis attack again. Later on, the group runs into a German patrol, and the captured Nazi actually proves very useful. He convinces the patrol that the Americans are his prisoners, and they manage to kill part of the patrol and escape. After this, the group runs into none other than some German nurses bathing naked in a river, because it's an Italian film, so fuck it. Nick suggests that the Americans pretend to be Nazi soldiers, and they're able to get on friendly terms with the girls, but they swiftly learn that they are in fact Americans when they see Fred come along, who is in fact black. The group then run off to a nearby camp. But the situation doesn't get any better from there, as a group of German soldiers soon arrive there at the camp with them, and Jaeger sends out the captured Nazi soldier in order to talk to them. After discussing something with them out of earshot, the German soldier realizes that the newly arrived are in fact Americans, and shouts, "Americans! Americans!" Jaeger, thinking that he is actually telling the Nazis who the fugitives really are, starts shooting at the Germans. He, however, has made a huge mistake, as one Colonel Buckner, played by Ian Bannon, reveals that they were actually a group of Americans dressed up as Nazis in order to take care of a very special mission. At this point, the only solution is that Buckner needs to trust this group led by Jaeger in order to carry out the task. Meanwhile, Burl meets Nicole, played by Deborah Berger, a French resistance nurse who is along with their group. He falls in love with her, but she is actually more infatuated with Tony. Because what else does this movie need than a fucking love triangle? It's already so fucking chaotic. Another problem soon arises when Fred is actually captured by enemy forces. Jaeger, Tony, Burl, and Nick attack the Nazi fortifications where he is being held and free him. After the group is reunited, Colonel Buckner finally explains to them what the actual plan is. According to him, they are to assault an armored train shipping a prototype V-2 missile. According to this plan, the train is supposed to pass under a mined bridge, but there are unexpected problems as Nick is unable to contact his comrades due to a broken transmitter, and is killed in an attempt to warn them. Burl is then killed by the train driver, and when all hope seems lost, Lieutenant Jaeger decides the outcome of the battle by blowing up the entire missile and the train with himself on board, destroying destroying the station that they were rolling into being assaulted by the Nazis. Ultimately, the only people to survive are Fred, Colonel Buckner, and Tony, who managed to reunite with Nicole. Now, on to the 2009 film, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. In 1941, in the French countryside, one SS Colonel Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz, is interrogating a dairy farmer in order to find the whereabouts of a local Jewish family. Landa eventually convinces the dairy farmer to reveal that the family is actually hiding beneath the floorboards where they're having that conversation. Thus, Landa has his soldiers shoot through the floorboards and kills the entire family, save for one, their daughter Shoshana, played by Melanie Laurent, who eventually escapes as she is run out of the range of the soldiers. Skipping ahead 3 years to 1944, Lieutenant Aldo Rain, played by Brad Pitt, is assembling a special task force in order to wreak havoc behind the German lines before the Normandy invasion. These soldiers are made up of Jewish Americans who have been, in some way, ostracized or otherwise exiled by German forces. These men would become to be known as the Bastards. Some notable members of the Bastards include Donnie the Bear Jew Donowitz, played by Eli Roth, and Sergeant Hugo Stiglitz, played by Till Schweiger, a disgraced, well, not disgraced, he killed 13 Gestapo officers and was thus sentenced to death, but they got him out. Their exploits are recounted by an escaped private of the SS, who is carved in the head with a swastika symbol to show that he will always have been a Nazi by the Bastard forces, showing their brutal attempts in wreaking havoc in the German line, including brutal murder and scalping. So, a bit more intense. Meanwhile, in Paris, Shoshana has now found her way into Paris and owning a local cinema, now living under the name Emmanuel Mignot. As she's working on her cinema, she meets Frederick Zoller one night. Seemingly the next day, she learns about his reputation as a war hero. Zoller is a celebrated German sniper who killed 250 soldiers in a single battle and stars in the Nazi propaganda film Nation's Pride. Infatuated with Shoshana, Zoller convinces Joseph Goebbels, played by Sylvester Groth, to hold the premiere of that film in her cinema. Landa, who is Colonel Landa from the beginning, remember that? Who is head of security for the premiere, interrogates Shoshana about how she acquired the cinema at such a young age, while giving hints that he may actually know who she is. Landa ultimately forgets his most important question and leaves her to proceed with the premiere. However, Shoshana then decides to plot with her Afro-French lover and projectionist, Marcel, played by Jackie Ido, to set the cinema ablaze during the premiere and killing every Nazi leader in attendance. Meanwhile, again, Intelligence Corps Lieutenant Archie Hickox is recruited to lead Operation Kino, a British plan to attack the premiere at the same time, unbeknownst to them, with the Bastards. With the Bastards as a joint American operation, I should say. Hickox, along with Bastard Stiglitz and Wilhelm Wicke, played by Gideon Burkhardt, go to a basement tavern in German-occupied northern France in order to meet an undercover agent who will be attending the premiere in Paris, a German film star by the name of Bridget von Hammersmark, played by Diane Kruger. Hickox inadvertently draws the attention of a series of soldiers and a Gestapo officer with his unusual German accent and his mannerisms. He ultimately gives himself away by using a British hand gesture. Their cover is blown. Stiglitz and Hickox shoot the Gestapo officer, triggering a gunfight that kills everyone in the tavern except one very unfortunate sergeant, Anne Hammersmark, who has been shot in the leg. Aldo Rain arrives and negotiates with this German, played by the name of Wilhelm, for Hammersmark's safe release, but she ends up shooting Wilhelm after he lowers his guard. Rain, believing Hammersmark sent Hickox and his men up, tortures Hammersmark, who convinces him that she is not a spy and reveals that none other than Hitler himself will be attending the premiere. Rain decides to continue the mission. Later, Landa comes in and investigates the aftermath of the tavern and finds Hammersmark's shoes and a napkin with her signature. At the premiere of the film, Donnie, Rain, and another bastard, Omar Ulmer, played by Omar Doom, no seriously, who all have explosives with timers strapped to their ankles, pose as Italian guests of von Hammersmark, hoping to fool the Germans who are unfamiliar with the language. However, Landa, who speaks fluent Italian, converses briefly with the bastards before allowing Donowitz and Ulmer to take their seats. He takes von Hammersmark into a private room, verifies the shoe from the tavern fits her, then strangles her to death. Rain, another bastard, Smithson Udovich, played by B.J. Novak, are then taken prisoner. But Landa has Rain contact his superior in the OSS and cuts a deal. He will allow the mission to proceed in exchange for safe passage through Allied lines, a full pardon for his crimes, and various benefits back in America after the war ends. During the screening, Zoller slips away to the projection room in order to see Shoshana. After she rejects his advances, he becomes aggressive. She pretends to acquiesce, but then pulls a pistol and shoots him in the back. Zoller, mortally wounded, then manages to shoot and kill her before he dies. As the film reaches its climax, spliced-in footage of Shoshana tells the audience in English, for some reason, that they are all about to be killed by a Jew. Marcel, having locked the doors of the cinema, ignites a huge pile of flammable film behind the screen as Shoshana's image laughs and the theater goes up in flames. Taking advantage of the sudden chaos, Ulmer and Donowitz break into the opera box containing both Hitler and Goebbels, killing them both. They then fire their machine guns into the panicked crowd until the bombs go off, killing everyone in the theater. Landa and his radio operator drive Rain and Udovich into Allied territory, where they surrender. Officially surrender, at least. Rain, however, then shoots the radio operator before ordering Udovich to scalp him. Despite agreeing to Landa's deal, Rain has him just restrained and then carves a swastika into his forehead, professing it to be his masterpiece. And that's your lot. God damn it, Tarantino, why do you have to have complicated plots?
Excellent both there. You followed through, though.
Whoa!
Very good. All All right, so I guess I will do Full Circle real quick. It's not a long one.
I figured. This one's a pretty unique pair.
So first we have, I should say firstly, both of these are for the 2009 version, the Tarantino version. Firstly, we have Andre Penverne, who was the old French veterinarian in Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, yeah.
And,
where they took Hammer's mark after she gets shot.
Yes. And he was a policeman at a station in 1973's The Day of the Jackal.
Oh. Man,
so he was in both of those productions.
That movie gets around.
It really does. I feel like we've mentioned it the most on this show.
It feels like
just by virtue of liking it and by virtue of a lot of people had bit parts in it.
Yeah.
And secondly, of course, we have Brad Pitt, who was Aldo Rain in Inglorious Bastards and was Rusty Ryan in Ocean's 11.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
So, you want to give your general first impressions as my voice regains a little bit? Like how the fact that, despite what I had imagined, neither of these films really have fuck all to do with each other?
Definitely, yeah. So, I mean, I did look into that, and I'm sure you did too, but since you're relaxing, I'll say as much of what I found. In that, so the 1978 Inglorious Bastards is actually kind of based on The Dirty Dozen, which I have not seen, so I'll just take what I read as truth as far as I know. I guess it's not lying to me. I saw it in multiple places. And then mostly the 2009 version is just the title. Tarantino really liked, and so he just used it.
Fair enough.
As to why it's misspelled, no, people have guesses. No one really seems to know. And Tarantino has been asked in interviews about why the title's misspelled. And he said that you don't, not in his exact words, but basically you don't compromise art by giving away things that you were thinking. Like, it's up to other people to interpret whatever. The stuff that David Lynch says as soon as he gets out of bed. Just basically that sort of shit.
See, I always figured it was so that he could get around potential action later of when people might search for the film, or the film might be presented that if it's misspelled, it's not technically a swear.
From a technical standpoint, that's very likely.
Yeah, that's the most I can imagine. I doubt there's any kind of deep artistic thing. I'm sure it literally is just that, but if he brings that up, then that might compromise it.
All right. I mean, that's fair. That's a fair assumption. In which case, Tarantino, you're a liar.
I mean, he's many things.
So, going on to the films themselves, the 2009 one, so Tarantino's version, I should say.
Yeah.
As with most of his works, very complicated, branching stories that connect. It takes place over a series of years. Very ruminative dialogue that's deeply written, which Tarantino is... If there's anything that you can say that he's good at, it's writing dialogue for characters.
Oh, yeah, he's a fantastic writer with film.
Yes, so overall, it's a very tangled web that he weaves, and you can get sort of confused when watching it, just by the virtue of what it is, but for the most part, they hold it together through good storytelling, so you can still tell what's going on, even though the nature of it is complicated.
Yeah.
That being said, the 1978 version, not that complicated, and I was still confused.
Yeah. And I should say, I mentioned this before we started recording, but I should say it for transparency. I could not, for the life of me, easily find an English version of this film. Like, apparently you were able to find a rentable version on Amazon. I could not find it for the life of me. And even during this, beforehand, I searched again trying to find it. Still couldn't. So I have pieced this together from a version that was floating around on YouTube that was all in Italian with crap English subtitles and plot synopses. So I have done my best, and I think I might actually understand the plot more than you did. Because I just looked up the synopsis. Possible.
And, I mean, you just read it, too. You have some familiarity with it. But I also said this before we started recording. I was able to rent it, and I did get an English version, but for the first, I'd say 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, I was worried that I wasn't watching it in its original language. I knew all of the actors were English actors, but the ADR is so awful in some spots, I thought I was watching a dub. And if you really pay attention, because I went back and looked for it, I believe it's the character that Michael Pergolani plays, Nick. I believe it's that character. But if you go back to the beginning of the film when they're all, everyone's sort of meeting and they're talking about what this person did wrong, they're loading onto the transport vehicle. I believe, if you listen to it, I think he's the one where it sounds like he's recording in a washroom. There's really bad echo on his lines. It sounds like he's in a completely different space from all of the actors, which is just the start of the ADR troubles that this movie had.
See, as far as I could tell, mine were fine. It's just all the language was in Italian.
It's probably because the whole thing was dubbed.
Yeah, but it's like, that's the thing. I'm all but certain the original lines were in English, because even when they were speaking Italian, the lips were not lining up. So the only thing I can think is that there was an original English dialogue, but they had to redub it.
So, I mean, that's sort of what I'm saying, is just that I know for a fact that the version I watched was the original with the English dialogue, because near the ending of the movie, when they're in more confined spaces, like on the train, the dialogue and the mouth movements actually do match up. It was just at the beginning I could not tell, because I assume because they were in an open space with a lot of things going on, a lot of stuff wasn't picked up by the boom mics, I guess, so they had to re-record it. But I was genuinely worried for a little bit.
Evidently, Italian movies were not great with their audio equipment.
Yeah, that's one of the most famous examples, I guess, of bad ADR is in, what is it, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? At the very beginning when the guy is in the rocking chair, and it sounds like he's in a different space and time. Yep.
And then, like, a train operator guy comes up to him and says something, but it's just so out of whack. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. So maybe for, I guess, the 60s and the 70s, especially, those sort of Italian American co-productions, they had a problem with their audio equipment, we'll say.
Hey, if we ever decide to do Django, we could see it again.
Oh, that's true.
Which hey, another Tarantino one.
Yeah, another Tarantino film. Whoopee!
But we get ahead of ourselves.
Yes. Let's not go too far forward.
Yes, let's touch on the current Tarantino film first.
Yes, that's another thing that I saw. I saw that Inglorious Bastards, the 2009 one, of course. Originally, he wanted to title it Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France, which eventually became the title of the first chapter. Gotta say, he really likes that Once Upon a Time, because I believe there was another movie he tried to name something similar, and then he changed it, and then, of course, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came up. So I just think he really likes that scheme of title.
I mean, that is something I've noticed about him in general over the years. He's kind of... I have a certain amount of respect for him, which I will qualify later on, I'm sure. But he's a lot like Scorsese in the fact that he truly does love movies, but more specifically, he really loves telling stories. And so, even like, you can even see it in his film with this one. Like, the very first shot is of them. It's of like the dairy farmers on the farm, and the opening shot, like one of the opening shots, is the woman pulling back a sheet and revealing the Nazi officers coming up. It's like, he literally is like, and so the curtain opens. It's like, oh shit, that's actually pretty cool. And so he definitely likes those tropes, but just playing them up in kind of a, not necessarily modernized, but kind of more just like where you least expect them kind of thing. Like, I mean, fuck, we have the whole scene where like they do the whole fucking essentially Cinderella scene with the shoe. Like, oh, the shoe fits. You're the person I'm looking for. Except now it's just involves violence against women, which that is one of the many things that I will qualify my respect for Tarantino with. Because what the fuck, man?
he's a fan.
Yeah.
A
lot of, it's hard to like a lot of his movies whenever I think about that. Like, wow, he just hates women, doesn't he?
Right. I guess that the main point to that sort of subversion that he likes to do is I wouldn't have liked it. Well, I mean, I don't know, because now we're getting into alternate universe territory, but I don't think I would have liked the movie's title if the whole movie was called Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France.
Yeah.
But I think that's a more clever play on things than like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I didn't like that title as soon as it was announced.
I didn't really have a problem with it per se, but like, yeah, I was also just kind of like, I feel like he could have done something better. Like, this whole situation they're talking about in this time period is pretty friggin' insane. I feel like he could have come up with something.
Yeah.
1969 was probably the most insane year for Hollywood in a while.
Yeah, take a page out of the Coen Brothers book. Do something like Hail Caesar-y. I like that title. That fits.
Still never seen that movie. I have no idea how good it is.
It's fun.
Cool.
It's not Fargo level, if that's what you're asking.
I mean,
I know you're not a huge fan of that one.
Not at all. Yeah, I'm definitely more Oh Brother Where Art Thou than Fargo. Anyway.
Yes, moving right along. I did want to go back to, because we lost it for a bit talking about all the audio and then history of movies and whatever.
Yeah.
Or people liking the history of movies. But I don't know. The 1978 one was confusing as I watched it, and it's not like I was watching it while doing something else. The movie had my attention.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
A lot of the time, especially near the end with all the train stuff, like things would happen, and I was like, didn't this happen 5 minutes ago? Or is it still happening?
Yeah, like, it is a hard movie to not pay attention to, just because it's like watching a train wreck, really. No pun intended. But it's so weird, and it just feels like it takes so many random tangents. Well, not necessarily tangents, but like just moments that are like, I feel like this could have been ironed out better. Just, all the scenes cut in with them just massacring German soldiers, which, like, it would have been one thing if they were like on a mission and everything, but they literally are just prisoners trying to escape, and they're just happening to run into the most number of soldiers who could get easily killed in history, and then bumble dick first into a secret mission. It's hard to like these guys, really.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially, I don't know, that magical mustache man.
Oh,
that's Nick. I guess that's Nick.
Yeah.
Is it? Or
wait,
yeah.
which? I believe that's Nick.
I don't remember the characters specifically. I just remember Hauser and Canfield. But
I remember Fred Williamson. Oh, that's Canfield.
Yeah, that was I had to think for a second. I was like, isn't that Canfield? Yeah.
He was cool.
Oh, he was. But the mustache man didn't seem to. Until the end of the movie, obviously, which is sort of where that's all leading during all the train stuff.
Yeah.
Up until that point, I don't think he has much to do with anything. He slightly contributes. He's like a food provider. He tries to sell knives. He has a half-hearted love triangle with the nurse, but then it's like a love square, and then he drops out of it.
Yeah.
So that Canfield and Tony can do it. I don't know. He just seems like a filler character that's only there to be at the end of the movie.
Yeah, to kind of round out the roster a little.
Yeah. I'm like, get rid of this guy.
In respect, at least in balance, the 2009 one isn't much better with that, because it just kind of drops in a couple guys. Like, it brings up, there's a whole, like, team of 8 other soldiers other than the lieutenant and I think Donowitz, that are part of the Bastards. And it's just like, we see a couple of them. One of them is like a translator. Another one kind of guards a few of the guys early on. And then we have the guy at the end, the 2 guys at the end. It's like, okay. But I guess, but it's still, even with that, I say that, they still feel like real characters. I don't know what, like, it's, again, I guess...
feels like he had a team he was trying to flesh out, and I guarantee you in, like, the original script or deleted scenes or something somewhere, one of those other soldiers, or one of the other bastards, had a scene to himself, because it felt like that's what Tarantino was trying to do.
Yeah. And, like, yeah, and god damn it, with his writing and everything, I truly did find them all believable, and they had cool scenes. Like, I didn't mention, there's a few other smaller scenes with each of those other characters that come up. Like, the one, like, Donowitz, like, my favorite scene in the whole bit is, Donowitz and Omar, which I got, which, side tangent again. The real actor's name is Omar Doom, and that's kick-ass.
it's a wonderful name.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a scene just before the climax when the theater goes up in flames where Donowitz distracts a pair of soldiers outside Hitler's theater box by, like, pretending to be a waiter with this wrist-mounted gun and everything, and he shoots him, and then the other guy, the Omar character, fucking belts it down the hallway in half a second to take out the second one. And it's like, it's an intense scene. It's like, man, I wish I had got more scenes with this guy. He's a badass.
Yeah.
So it's still cool to see that. It's like, it really is just, I was trying to go into it being like, oh, in all fairness, Tarantino does it too. But it's like, no, even with little screen time, you can flesh out a character. It's just, this other guy had the entire fucking film. We still don't know anything about him.
Speaking of badasses, I love Christoph Waltz.
Oh my god, yes, thank you. He's
fantastic.
He's like one of my favorite actors.
And here's the thing, I know him from this movie and from Django. I know he's in other stuff, like he was in some of the Bond movies, but I don't know him nearly as well from that stuff. I wish I could say that I've seen him in more things, but I honestly haven't.
I want to say he was a German TV star before he did more American movies. I need to look into his filmography, though.
That's possible.
Because, like, I'd love to see more. That guy's awesome.
I do know that there's a stop-motion animated movie that's slated to come out next year, based on Pinocchio, directed by Guillermo del Toro. And
man, every word that you just said got better and better.
Well, it's about to get better. Apparently, Christoph Waltz is supposed to be voicing both Gideon and Handsome John, which is the fox and the cat characters, respectively.
Oh, that's fun.
Apparently, he's supposed to be in that movie. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too now.
Yes, but he is great, and I want to see him in more things, and not things like whatever Big like Eyes, that Tim Burton thing, or
the Green
stuff
Hornet.
Like that.
The Green Hornet.
Oh my god, he was in the Green Hornet, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was a terrible movie.
It really was.
Battle Angel Alita.
I didn't end up seeing that, so
yeah,
can't comment.
I mean, I know he's in it. I haven't seen it either.
Oh, okay. Aside that, where was I going to go with that thought? I had more to say about him.
I mean, we were just like slathering him with praise, really.
Just a ton of schmaltz. I guess I was just going to say, like, there's a reason he swept all of the award shows.
Oh yeah,
when the movie came out. Everyone agrees. Like,
it feels like the whole film is kind of almost framed around his character in a way. And, just the way he plays it and the way, like, I'm really thinking about it now. The 78 one doesn't really have a particular villain, does it?
The villain is Germany. And then the fact that Tony is kind of racist. Those are the villains.
Alrighty. Yeah, because I was thinking about that now. I was like, I wonder why that film felt so open-ended and kind of lacking motivation. It's like, because there's no friggin' villain. And if anything, these soldiers are the villains because they're friggin' monsters by the end of it. I mean, again, they're killing Nazis, but still, like, it gets to a point where I almost feel bad for them. Like, I talked about it before we started recording, but there's a channel I watch on YouTube called Carnage Counts, and it, like, tallies up all the kills in a movie, like on-screen kills or deaths or whatever. And this one clocked in at like 330 something. It's just insane. And like, you'd think just from the the plot synopsis that I gave, like, oh, it couldn't possibly be that much. No, like, it's just like every other scene, it feels like they're just gunning down guys in, like, classic, spaghetti Western-ish style of vague gunshots and having no justice to hit anything close to a target, and just people just dying by the dozens.
What fun that they had.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
They
were smiling the whole time.
Yeah. I'm sure that was fun to film.
I hope so, at least.
I would love to go back to, like, one of those, like, crazy films like that back in the day and just be on set while all those scenes are going on and just being like, everyone go fucking crazy. Action.
I'm the director of chaos.
Yeah.
So am I really a director? But yeah, and that goes back to what we were saying too, is that the Tarantino one can come across as confusing because of how much is going on, but it's handled so well, and Christoph Waltz's character essentially is the bridge between these two different plots that are going on. These two different murder plots. He's involved in both of them directly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the only real crossover that there is.
More or less, yeah. Like, in the end, like, I'm surprised at how quickly the guys at the end were just, like, taking advantage of the situation. Like, I don't know what their plan was originally, because, like, they were going up to Hitler's box not knowing that the place is about to go up in flames. So it was like, were they just gonna go in there and just shoot him, or were they just gonna stand near it with the bombs on their legs until it went off? So it's like, I don't know.
I don't know either. I guess I thought that they would take the bombs off of their legs and then, like, leave, and hopefully they wouldn't have been noticed.
Yeah. I think the whole time they were planning on going suicide bomber.
Ooh. A darker take, but it's possible.
I mean, it's a dark movie.
That's true.
But, yeah, so, like, just the fact that they were just like, oh, I hear screaming and burning, let's just get in there and start gunning people down. They just took advantage. It was like, okay, let's do this.
It's gun time. I don't know what's happening, but let's do it.
And it's fun how they actually subverted expectations. He subverted expectations with the end, because they actually straight up actually kill Hitler and Goebbels, which is like, oh, okay. That's fun.
I was not expecting that.
Exactly. I was like, okay, so historical fiction. I'm fine with this.
Which is actually funny, because the whole thing, I knew it was a parody, but I hadn't seen the full Inglorious Bastards, so I didn't directly recognize it, or all the scenes individually. But there was a Simpsons episode from just a couple of years ago that was one of their anthology episodes with 3 separate plots.
Yep.
And there's one where Marge, the whole family is in, like, World War II times, and Marge basically is a soldier and goes off to fight in World War II, ends up opening a theater, and then, like, burns it down with Hitler inside while they're watching Dumbo.
Yeah, that's very specific.
Yeah, it was a straight up parody, and I knew it was of this film. I just didn't have the scene correlation skills. And now that I've seen both, I do, because I know exactly what shot is supposed to be a parody of which shot and whatever.
Which I gotta say, that whole ending scene is just some fucking raw catharsis.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's like, say what you want about Tarantino, he can make a straight up raw climax of a scene. It's just like, how do we make this as cool as possible? Let's have a Jewish woman who's had her entire family killed by Nazis burn down a building filled with the worst Nazis in history, with her laughing over it as the flames go up and her face goes over the smoke like a giant skull. It's like, fuck.
And, I mean, speaking of raw, that whole scene, like, they're dealing with a fire, and it wasn't necessarily a controlled fire. It got out of hand, and the firefighters had to be, like, called to the studio. Like, they weren't controlling a lot of that. Set pieces were falling down, and it was all real.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure that was terrifying for the extras.
I would not have been. I want to be around for this filming of the 78 one. Not so much that scene in the 2009 one.
Yeah, like, there's a lot going on in the minds of those people. It's like, okay, first of all, we're playing Nazi elitists. Not even, like, soldiers. We're playing literally the elites of Nazi upper crust. So that makes us, like, doubly horrible. Secondly, we're in a building that's on fire. And thirdly, we're also being shot at. It's like, there's a lot going on. I don't know if I want that extra credit.
I could just go next door, film something else for someone a little calmer.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I
I'm
don't
fine
need
with
any
this.
of this.
They're filming something next door, and they just hear all the screams and fire burning through the wall. It's like whenever you go, it's the best. Like whenever you go to a movie at the theater and you're watching something like a more of a drama that has a lot of quiet moments, and like I think I was watching. Was it Rocket Man? I think. But it was at the same time one of the Godzilla movies was out recently, and there's just like really quiet scenes. And meanwhile, in the background, I'm just hearing, it's just so funny.
They probably heard all the screaming next door, and they were like, "Oh well, I saw Eli Roth walk in there earlier. They're probably filming Hostel 3 or something," and then just ignored it.
Yeah, good point. It's like, okay, Eli Roth's there. I'm sure we're fine.
There's some sort of torture porn being filmed there. It's fine.
Yeah, Hostel 3. Jesus. I forgot they made a sequel to Hostel.
Oh, yes. Part 2, of course.
Yeah.
Lest we forget. As long as we're talking about the actors in the film, I do think it's funny for the 2009 one. This is, I think, the first time we've talked at least in depth about Christoph Waltz.
Yeah.
This is the third time that we've mentioned BJ Novak on the show.
It is?
Yes, it is. Not because we've covered him in like all the movies we've been doing, but I know that we had an episode where we discussed The Office, and I know we had an episode where we discussed The Founder, which he is also in. I just think it's funny we've talked about him 3 times, but Christoph Waltz, this is his first time.
Good point, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, one guy gets around, it's like, it's quantity versus quality, you know?
That's true.
And we got the middle of the road with Brad Pitt, which I gotta say, I actually really liked him in this. I thought he was hilarious.
Oh, no, he's great.
I know there's a lot of scenes, like a lot of movies where he's kind of back and forth. This one, he's pretty much damn perfect.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. I mean, his accent's pretty good, too.
Oh, yeah, and as someone from Tennessee, I can attest, I've heard that accent before, I'm pretty sure. It's like, I think I've met that exact man, just like, very intense, but nowhere near as justified. It's like, you are not Lieutenant Aldo Rain, you're a dude at a fucking Little League baseball court? Diamond.
The baseball court. You know, it's the baseball court.
Yeah, just like, it just seems like every major line in the movie that can be remembered comes out of his mouth at some point. It's like,
yeah,
talking about, like, each and every one of you owes me 100 Nazi scalps. And like that sort of stuff. It's like, shit, I remember that to this day. Mostly because it was in the trailer so many damn times.
Yeah. He was in the trailer a lot.
Yep.
We didn't get a lot of Hitler. Where Hitler? Put him in the trailer.
Yeah. I mean, we got the famous one, the 999999.
Oh, yes, of course. Very meme-worthy.
Yes. Not a lot of the brief moment with Mike Myers.
Oh, yeah. I spent the whole time like, is that Mike Myers? That has to be, because I recognize his smile.
Yep,
even
100%.
through all of the everything, I knew that was his smile.
I should say, because I did mention in the synopsis, Mike Myers has a very brief role as the British officers, which, I never actually mentioned who he was. But the British officer that was working in joint with the Bastards, played by Michael Fassbender, actually. His handler was played by fucking Mike Myers. His name was General Ed Fennick, which might have been a real general. I don't know. Also, there's a credit in here for Winston Churchill. I don't remember Churchill being in this.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't remember either, but I did also see that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of confused by that, but whatever.
Maybe it's a background thing, though.
It may have been a voice or something.
Oh, that's possible too. I would like to say though, I had to look this up just to make sure. I wasn't sure if it was the year before or the year of. Of note, Mike Myers was in this film. It came out in 2009, and the year before he ended his career with The Love Guru.
Oh,
so
well.
It was very gracious of Quentin Tarantino to not cut him out of the movie after The Love Guru.
Yeah, I mean, he's a notable fucking character in it, despite his brevity in it. I mean, he himself has another memorable line, though. We have all our rotten eggs in one basket, and our objective is to blow up the basket. It's like, that's a kick-ass line.
It's a good line.
Yeah. There's a lot of good lines in this.
Good character. Good on you, Mike Myers. We'll be seeing you in Austin Powers 4 whenever that inevitably gets made.
Oh, God. Let the man rest. I hope he's doing okay.
They're not pushing him into it. I'm sure it's all him. I'm sure it's his doing.
I mean, if that's the case, then fine, power to him. They can't get any more ridiculous.
That's true. I mean, the third Austin Powers is just like the greatest hits of Austin Powers 1 and 2. It's like, oh, our franchise is famous. Here's all the things you like about the other two movies. So I don't know where they could go with 4.
I don't know. Nowhere good. It will not be good. If it comes out and we get to do a remake video on it, I can just firmly state now it won't be good.
Well, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to our coverage of that.
That and fucking Bill and Ted. Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah, that one's going to be coming out sooner than you think.
Yeah, sure. That's coming out here soon. They'll get ready for that one.
So I would like to go back to the 78 version briefly, because we've been talking about the 2009 one a lot.
This is the rare occasion where we actually talk about the one we, probably spoiler alert, probably really prefer versus the one we really hate, because we were bashing on it so much.
Yeah, there's just not a whole lot to be said. I outside of the fact I would like to say Fred Williamson, I think, is the best actor in the film.
Oh, by far.
I think he has the best role. He needs to be doing more things. I've looked at his filmography. He has a lot of credits. Very few of them I recognize. In fact, he was a very famous and prominent figure in blaxploitation films of the 70s, a lot of which have very unfortunate titles, and I will leave it at that.
Okay. Well, now I'm fucking curious.
You go ahead and look it up, because I'm not about to say it.
Yeah, you continue on with your deal.
But yeah, I think he has sort of the best role in the movie.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, go on.
That's on Wikipedia. And probably IMDb. I don't know. I just think he does the best job, and they play off of his race a decent amount, just because the character of Tony is a racist.
Right.
And so they get mileage out of that. I wish it was a bit more double-sided, so that maybe, Fred could give it back to Tony more, but
he's
that
Italian.
doesn't really happen.
I'm sure there's plenty of things you can say about him.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, just Tony's an ass, and then he falls in love with the nurse and seemingly gets the nurse. I don't know. I don't like that path too terribly much, just because I don't really care for that character. But, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's just like, it's hard to come up with more. So it was interesting that they kind of brought up the historical aspect with the V2 missile. I was like, oh, cool, that's an actual, I mean, like, whether or not someone sabotaged a train with a V2 missile on it is debatable. I'm sure maybe something like that happened. I don't know. But it was just interesting to see, like, any semblance of history and the fact of, like, oh, yeah, the V2 missile, that was a thing.
That existed.
That's a thing they can point out to. And, like, that I was able to cling on to that one a little bit, but at the same time, I was just like, well, I mean, not really doing anything beyond it. Like, not talking about the specifics of it. It's just like, oh, it's just a missile. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot more missiles than this one, but okay.
There's more out there. Come on, don't limit yourself. Don't limit your options.
There's the whole Blitz thing going on with England. I think they have a few.
Look at this catalog here. Just tell me what you like. And he actually does lead to, I think, my favorite moment in the movie. And that's that, so it's near the beginning. They've picked up this German American whatever man who wants to get back to Minnesota. And they stop because I guess they run out of gas. I think that's what it was.
I think.
Or maybe they just stopped just because. I don't remember. But there's a bunch of naked German women in a body of water nearby, with all the gratuitous nudity that the 70s would give you in literally any film. Italian
70s, no less.
Exactly. So, you can expect all the boob shots. But I really... So, all the soldiers, with the exception of Fred Williamson's character, jump in and start splashing around and playing, and then Fred Williamson hears them all having fun and runs to join in the fun. The German women see him, scream American, and they all pull out guns and start firing.
Yeah,
I thought that was hilarious. I think that's the best scene in the movie.
It's a very nice subversion. So it's like, oh, they're going to be act all innocent. They're going to be like scared, and then some German officers will show up and be like, oh, what the hell is going on? And it's like, no, they were like, holy fuck, grab your MP40s.
I was not I loved it. It was great.
That was a good bit. I did enjoy that. That's a very distinct scene of seeing fully topless Aryan women just standing in the road holding fucking MP40s, just shooting at people. It's like, oh, I didn't know I was into this.
I mean, another example of a pretty pointless scene in the grand scheme of things, but I enjoyed its inclusion because the rest of the movie's pretty lackluster.
Yeah, I almost glossed over it entirely, but I was like, this is going to get brought up at some point, so I may as well mention it.
It has to. It had to.
There's so little else going on. It's like, oh my god, something. It's not much, but it's something.
It's not them standing around eating food.
Like,
or the invasion of the German sort of building that lasts all of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent escape via rope.
See, like, fucking Tarantino was able to make a fucking drinking scene the most tense situation in a film I've seen in years. It's like, holy shit, the entire tavern scene, I'm just like, holy fucking hell.
Yeah.
So, this is Jaws level tension.
And, I mean, the music, too. I don't know who did the score for the 78 one, but it's... I don't know. I don't feel like he was really trying. I don't want to cast aspersions on someone whose career I'm not familiar with, but it just sounded like standard wartime comedy music. Almost kind of MASH-like, actually.
A little bit. That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about it, but yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. MASH-like.
Yeah, kind of very MASH-like, but... as opposed to that, and it was going for a different tone, so the tonality of the music is different.
Yeah.
But in the 2009 one, just the first chapter of the movie at the dairy farm where Christoph Waltz is interrogating the man, just I believe they were violins, just the way they were striking and steadily getting more sharp.
Yeah.
As things were getting tenser. Ooh, I love that. I love a good score. Especially in suspense movies. And this isn't a suspense film, but it has a lot of suspenseful scenes. So that I think that's utilized very well.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking fantastic. It's just, and then it's like the diegetic sound in the tavern, like it has the record player that's been going, like it has the whole scene in the beginning. It's very jovial and everything with the record still playing. But then as it stops and it's just spinning uselessly once, things are starting to get kind of built up, and then the Gestapo officer just stops it entirely. It's just like beautiful, masterful work of shifting like how the scene is going. It's like, oh, jovial situation in the beginning, things are fine, things are going great, they're going to have this conversation. Oh no, they're starting to pick up on this weird accent, they're kind of getting belligerent. Then, oh no, who's this guy literally looking like the devil in the fucking corner? It's like, here we go.
How things progress is very important. You can't just have things like dun dun dun. All of a sudden, the Jaws music starts up out of nowhere. There's no lead into it. That's not how good scores are made. Things aren't abrupt unless a scene is supposed to be abrupt, like a jump scare or something. Which even then, I'm not for them, but they've existed for forever. And even then, there's usually an underlying sort of tense tone, like violins, like buzzing, like in the Flight of the Bumblebees or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to make sure the music flows, is all I'm saying. And yeah, I'm a big fan of when the music is not outside of the film itself. Yeah, when it's internal.
Yep.
To the movie, like a
diegetic sound, boys and girls. And
yes,
non-diegetic is stuff that's put over the top of the scene.
Yeah, I know that the term is diegetic, but I always get confused which is diegetic and which is non.
It should.
So I don't use them.
I'm pretty sure it's diegetic when it's like actually in the scene itself.
But yeah, that stuff always. I always prefer when the music can actually be integrated into what's happening. Like, I haven't rewatched it yet. Who knows if I'll actually like it? But that's always something I've really liked about 101 Dalmatians, because when Cruella de Vil stops by the house of Roger and Anita, her theme is playing. You know, the Cruella de Vil, blah, 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 and it's Roger on the piano upstairs throughout the entirety of the scene, and then he picks up a trombone and it keeps cutting back to him, and sometimes you forget that it's diegetic and it's actually happening, and she can probably hear her own theme song.
Yeah.
But that is what's happening in that scene, and I've always really liked stuff like that, because it makes the world feel more real.
It's like that one scene in that one David Lynch film.
Mulholland Drive?
It's something where they're like two women are like at a stage show.
Yes, Mulholland Drive.
Yeah. And I think that scene's amazing.
They're listening to a Spanish version of Crying.
Yeah.
It is. I really love that movie. But yes, that's fantastic as well.
I still need to see the whole film.
I mean, I highly advertise it. I know a lot of people don't. They find it hard to get into David Lynch stuff just because it can be so obtuse. But I think all of the stuff that he makes is great. And hey, that Dune remake is still on track. And when it comes out, you better bet your ass I'm saying we do it so we can talk about a David Lynch movie.
Oh, hell yeah. Plus, I want to be able to watch Dune.
Of course.
As you can probably tell, we're waffling just a little bit here. As you can tell...
I trailed off. I was tying it into the story, but then we started talking about Dune. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm mostly just saying for the fact of, it's hard to kind of go on, given we've kind of worn our hearts on our sleeve, pretty much since the beginning here. That the 78 one, just like, it's, even by like war movies standards of the time, it's over the top, it's weirdly cut, it's got weird acting and terrible dubbing in both English and Italian, evidently.
Yes, bad ADR all around.
Yeah, and so it's hard to recommend it, because there's so many other good movies out at the top around that time period. I mean, fucking A Bridge Too Far is a great example for it. I don't know the exact year of that, but it was within the same general time frame. It's hard. It'd be hard to recommend it on its own, let alone in comparison to the juggernaut that is Inglorious Bastards of Tarantino fame. Because, like, it is... I would say it's his best work, personally. I know a lot of people that have mixed feelings about that. A lot of people are saying Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his best. I didn't really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood from what I've seen of it. It's just more situations, at least at the end, of just being like, hey, let's just be super violent towards women. And so, it's just like... Mm-hmm. This one, it's incredibly well written. The tension is among the best in the business. The cinematography, it's brilliant. It's funny in places. It's Christoph Waltz again plays probably one of the best villains ever. Just like both as his ability to be creepy and just as a truly dynamic character. It's just like, fuck, man. It's a movie you need to see.
I mean, I tend to agree with you with all of your points.
Yep.
I tried to pull in the 78 version as much as possible, and I gave 2 points in favor of what I like about it, but I mean, obviously, all around, it's not a great movie. It's not. I don't think it's pieced together very well. Not all of the performances are that great. It has some okay gags,
yeah,
and then one scene that I actually enjoy. It's yeah. I can't even say it's a product of the time because it was late 70s, and I said it before on the show, and I'll say it a million times in the future, but the 70s is my favorite decade for film, and I don't think that this compares adequately to a lot of the movies that were coming out at the time. So even for a spaghetti quote-unquote Western style of film, it doesn't really hold its own. So I have to give it to the great storytelling and, of course, always the fantastic dialogue of a Tarantino film. He just knows what he's doing.
I don't like most of his work, but this one's a very big exception. It has the two movies had fuck all to do with each other too. So dang it, Tarantino, what the hell?
He wasn't actually going to You know what? This is an example of a movie that I think can be taken and made better. Someone needs to remake Inglorious Bastards proper. This is what we advertise on the show. Remakes can be a good thing.
I mean, didn't you just say it was like a Dirty Dozen?
Well, it was a remake of A Dirty Dozen to an extent, but also, this is like, as far as I could tell, it's more of a remake of the Dirty Dozen than the 2009 Inglorious Bastards is of this movie, if that makes any sense.
I gotcha. But yeah, there are plenty of other war movies at the time. You can just Google them. It's like, I know, A Bridge Too Far is the main one I can think of. But I couldn't really think of much else at the time.
Is that sort of your suggestion?
That and what was the fucking Weird Al Yankovic parody movie that he did where he's like Rambo or something?
The only Weird Al movie I can remember is UHF.
I want to say it's that because there's a scene in it where he's like basically just ripping on Rambo.
I don't remember. Hold on, let me look that up.
Whatever it is, I think it's Yankovic, but it's some.
Oh, you're right. That's in UHF. I don't remember this.
Yeah,
I've seen
that's the only other one I can recommend because it's like it feels like the parody version that that the '78 version is trying to be, except actually like kind of fun.
Yeah, I guess. Go ahead. I was not expecting that. Go ahead and watch UHF, I suppose.
There's a random fucking reference for you.
I have not seen that in a very long time. Maybe I should watch UHF again.
Go right ahead.
I guess for me, if you want something similar to the 78 version but better, there's tons of spaghetti westerns that are similar in vein but done better than Inglorious Bastards. Like The Good and the Bad and the Ugly is a good movie. Lots of people like Once Upon a Time in the West. I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's good. So just films like that. And then as far as the 2009 one goes, I wouldn't say that it's a war movie because it's not, but I'm not a huge fan of a lot of movies around that time period necessarily. So I'll just go off of the Tarantino thing. And if you want another Tarantino film, I think a lot of his stuff is great. Most people tout Pulp Fiction as his best work. I think Pulp Fiction's okay.
Yeah.
I think Reservoir Dogs is the best film Tarantino's made. I still enjoy Reservoir Dogs. So I suggest that.
Yeah, I think my favorite of his work is Kill Bill, just because it's just kind of cool.
Kill Bill's, and I assume you count both parts in that.
Yeah, because it really is just one film, just in two parts.
Well, right, yeah. So, oh, that's fair. No one suggests Jackie Brown. It's decent.
Yeah, or Hateful Eight, which was eh.
I still have not seen Hateful Eight because I heard it was eh.
Yeah, no, it's not great. It's basically it's another Western one. Just see Django.
Yeah. Oh, Django's good. Yeah.
Which we may cover that.
We very well could.
Although this time we're going to look into it a bit first, see if they're even remotely connected. Which I know there's a sort of a connection in it, but I won't spoil it. So
we'll just do it anyways because Christoph. Oh, I know the connection you're talking about.
Yep.
But maybe we'll do it in the future just because Christoph Waltz is in it too. So
hooray!
Get to cover him again.
It's pretty much the only other time I think we'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I would have to look into the rest of his filmography to find out, but I don't think he's been in any other notable remakes, per se.
Unless we start getting into Bond films, and that is a can of worms that is going to be hard to get into.
That was one of the ones that we brought up when we were first tossing around ideas for the show, where it was like, if we were to touch Bond, we would have to do something like the first Bond and then the Leslie Nielsen movie Spy Hard or something, because we can't compare all of the Bonds to each other.
It'd be really
fun. That's a separate podcast.
It'd be fun to do the very first one and then just do the very latest one and then trying to see how hard things have changed just with that one jump.
That could be interesting. Yeah, it could be fun.
That almost seems like a comedy episode more than anything. It's like, man, this sequel is really weird.
That'd be the April Fool's one. Not to tease too many things for the future, but
yeah.
But yeah, I guess we're near the end of that, so I will go ahead and just say theyremadeit@gmail.com. Go ahead and send us an email with any suggestions you may have or thoughts about improving the show or maybe unimproving it, making it worse. Maybe we'll take your advice there.
Yeah, let's be retractive like most remakes.
Oh, I would love to just be a remake of a podcast.
Let's just fucking phone it in.
I'm phoning it in right now.
Hell yeah, I'm slightly drunk. I'm not really, I'm just kidding, but still.
Might as well be.
Yeah.
Go ahead and check us out at It Remade on Instagram and at They Remade It on Twitter.com for updates and just little things to post. Go ahead and follow us, subscribe, like, favorite, comment on any of those podcasting platforms. Of course, our host is Anchor.fm, and you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podbay, Spotify, all of those. Wherever you may listen to podcasts, except for a couple, because I forgot to update with some of the new ones. And there's always new podcast platforms, because it is the future of entertainment.
Apparently.
So, at least the future of radio.
Yeah.
So that is that.
I'd say we did a good job this time around, in the fact of this was a very heavy one-sided one. We haven't had one of those for a while.
No, yeah, I'd say it's been a while. We've had a lot of discourse recently, just in conversing about these movies. So it's nice to have one every now and then where it's like, oh, this is the clear favorite. Now let's discuss why.
Yeah, let's gather around this barrel and shoot some fucking fish.
Exactly. Yes.
It'll never quite be Ghost in the Shell or fucking Departed, but still pretty good.
I don't know that anything can top Departed.
Oh God. Let me just mark down the counter. Days we have not shat on The Departed. Back down to 0.
Flip the switchboard back.
Yeah. Fuck that movie. Well, this has been Hate Departed Cast, as always. And, as always, I am your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
Now, I don't know about y'all, but I sure as hell didn't come down from the goddamn Smoky Mountains, cross 5,000 miles of water, fight my way through half of Sicily, and jump out of a fucking aeroplane to teach the Nazis lessons in humanity. Nazi ain't got no humanity. They're the foot soldiers of a Jew-hating, mass-murdering maniac, and they need to be destroyed.